So, our readers today are Keli Osborn, Jeff Stager, and Emmett Wigfall. And Keli will be reading first. Keli has worked as a news reporter, university instructor, and manager in local government. She currently volunteers with community organizations, including the League of Women Voters. Her poems appear in Timberline Review, Passenger, San Pedro River Review, Confrontation, and other journals, and in several collections, including Nasty Women Poets, an unapologetic anthology of subversive verse, All We Can Hold, Poems of Motherhood, and the Donut Book. Keli is partial to cream filling in her donuts. Also, I want to mention that Keli, besides being a wonderful poet, is a wonderful, shall we say, critic. She's in a critique group with me, and her advice is always incredibly good. So, welcome, Keli.
I'd like to start with a poem from Wisława Szymborska, A Contribution to Statistics. A contribution to statistics. Out of 100 people, those who always know better, 52. Doubting every step, nearly all the rest. Glad to lend a hand if it doesn't take too long, as high as 49. Always good because they can't be otherwise, 4. Well, maybe 5. Able to admire without envy, 18. Suffering illusions induced by fleeting youth, 60, give or take a few. Not to be taken lightly, 40 and 4. Living in constant fear of someone or something, 77. Capable of happiness, 20-something tops. Harmless singly, savage in crowds, half at least. Cruel when forced by circumstances, better not to know even ballpark figures. Wise after the fact, just a couple more than wise before it. Taking only things from life, 30, I wish I were wrong. Hunched in pain, no flashlight in the dark, 83, sooner or later. Righteous, 35, which is a lot. Righteous and understanding, 3. Worthy of compassion, 99. Mortal, 100 out of 100. Thus far, this figure still remains unchanged. So thanks to Joan and to Martha and Erica in particular for hosting the series, not just for inviting me, but for doing the series, which I try to come to most months, and it's just always a great ride. So thanks so much for your work, and thanks to Jeff and Emmett. I'm somewhat familiar with your work because I've heard you, and I'm glad to be here with you today. Thanks to the Lane Literary Guild and River Road Parks, and of course to all of you who came in today on such a beautiful day. So we've got our spring on, so let's do this. A poem from the Fourth River that was of mine, that was in the Fourth River in 2016. How the plants grow if the water turns to dust. Here, there is no dust in summer here. Richard R. Howard, April 6, 1847, in a letter from the Oregon Territory. Here, look at me. Here, let me help you. Here it is. Here we are. Here as a way of calling attention. Feel the tension, taut rope across the chasm. Call it gulf, call it rift, gorge, or crater. Brand it, mark it, scuff the edges. Watch for scree, for slippage at the rim. Between the known and known, label these peaks, call them summits or zenith. Drop inside a gap. Find an opening, the aperture. Locate light, passing through your cradle of arms. Will you someday harvest raindrops from the underside of uncommon green? Wetness from underside of tongue? How will you answer the wind? With your name or the name of another? Dust is grime, filth, smut soot. dry fine powder, tiny particles of earth or waste matter. Summer, the warmest season of the year. Here, in, at, or to this place, indicating one's presence in a roll call. This is a cento, and for those who aren't familiar with centos, cento is from the Latin word for patchwork, and centos are poems that borrow exclusively lines from other poems by other poets. And so these are from poets who are writing about immigration, migration, and seeking refuge in the world. Poets from around the world over several decades. They send us back a cento. My tongue is divided into two, tongues of bells and black dragon. In English, I have told you how I love you cutting with headlong and unanimous consent. Until this 5 a.m., I couldn't remember a day so perfect, that red and more red. In that way, the fireworks were for me too. I'd seen them unload their shovels and dirt. They were hungry because their hands, because we have drowned many at a time. You couldn't be American if you were blind about eternity. But the cathedral rises. It feels to live and move in two worlds at once. Darling, the sea widens for you tonight and deepens. The molecular processes of you are never finished by unequal languages at silence. This is for the dangerous words hiding in the pages, the beautiful, unformed rocks in our hands, motioning for us, though they send us back. We are on the bus now. Throw your shadow overboard. What shall we plant for the future? And I want to shift to a few poems for and about various kinds of mothers. Some of them aren't so likable, maybe, I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, from Passenger, a gesture is a signal. When I was kite, the ground was hard, wide sky blowing terror and laughter, the birds, trees, clouds whipping green, ribbons past my corners, around my tail. When I was bowl, chipped lip, and empty well, my hunger asked for cold cereal, hot soup, salad mixed with breath and blood. When I was alphabet, my arms crossed impressively, wandering eyes, inky black. Intricate stories told themselves, my voice halting in a labyrinth. When I was bullet, I lived inside a pistol, locked into a cabinet at the long end of a hallway, surrounded by wedding faces, high school smiles, toddler curls. After she fell for the last time, I nested in a cardboard box, waiting. I was tobacco, brown gloves worn soft, salted, with pleasure and sorrow. When my delicate hands fluttered in air, I was soaring grenade, vessel of words, a woman no one had heard. Stone fruit. My sons were born between small deaths, their possible sisters the size of plums. At night, I fall asleep listing possible names, work my way from Allison through Zadie, imagine girls, sweet or tart, climbing hills, digging dirt. I hear the never-were sing to autumn, summer, spring. Do they squabble still now that they're grown, or call each other every day? It's never winter in their dreams. My plum darlings, my flesh around a pit, around a seed. Long fallen, you are decades past. Stone fruit, dear droops, your lips, teeth, chins, stained, forever russet. my burst of life, my pulp beyond decay. This is Windfalls, not the reading series. Windfalls, the poem. Here are vine and velvety leaves, plump with rain, bursting from spent pumpkin that streaks the dark soil. Here's the sun that kissed your cheeks, yellow moon that watched you sleep, stars you counted late at night, starting over each time they slipped through your fingers. Here is the stained cookbook, your birthday wishes scribbled in vanishing fragments. Within my dresser, I find small teeth, bagged and buried with a jumble of loose beads, scraps of paper, photos. In one, your curly nimbus leaning against my shoulder, snapshot catching my arm around your softness. Here are the windfalls, bruised and perfect from a tree in our garden. The apples will always be yours, always taste of you. Is it wrong to know this much? In honor of saints, known and unknown. And this harkens back to an older, colder time. November, and my kitchen table groans under cold metal bowls of cherry tomatoes, fist-sized green globes, hard as rock, in a bucket beside them. November, and a skeleton dangles from the hook on my door, mumbles low about yesterday's candy, pumpkins on the stoop, melting like candles. I wear socks to bed and rise in the dark. Carrots like pale orange thumbs hid too long in the dark. Roses curl into closure on stems. Crisp scarlet, gold, copper filling gutters, the leaves will soften and rot, rain on the way. November wait can be a long and gray horizon. When she told me hers was the good kind of cancer, my mother stood convicted. I pretended she'd already revealed the cyst on her leg, nodded as she rationed her news. We shared an area code, our eye teeth had more to say than time, and time was not enough. In my rearview mirror, the summer eclipse shrinks to a calendar jot, a pinprick. How many angels might dance on the point of a needle? When the moon passed between earth and sun, the cool air came on quick. I stood with friends in the dark silhouette, a great calm. We watched a fleeting black disk slide across the sky, saw the feathery corona. Silence, just an interlude. Before radiance returned, the birds cried out. Did I imagine urgent dusk? At our campfire that night, a garden-armed woman, inky blues and greens winding wrist to elbow, threw match after match at paper and logs. I watched her poke fire, send sparks into twilight, watched her lift one tiny flare to her lips, extinguish flame as casually as shoving bangs from her face, casually as walking into a Walmart or high school unloading a rifle, or driving a truck onto a breath of green space. And I thought, yeah, this, how like life that matches flicker, bright and slim, provisional, glow shimmering near, steady plume, a glint, a trace. This poem is for two voices, so I'm going to try it. We'll see how it works. I kind of do this, and that's just how it is. What color is red bone marrow? So we'll go this way. 11 traffic lights to the cancer center to learn if my son has Fanconi anemia, leukemia, aplastic anemia, not enough platelets, low blood cell counts, listless fatigue, insomnia, inertia, melancholia. My best friend once drove a red Carmen Ghia. Consider brains full of neurons and glia. No moonbeam in my hand, no problem like Maria. We traveled this road or that, always via so many, too many ears. A yellow flatbed, long as a house, cuts in front of us. Another agent from a mud bath utopia. I count blinks of the left turn signal flashing. Someone, somewhere, is scraping soil, severing trees. Suburbia, mania, aria. A collision with a tractor trailer caught the movie star. Children survived. Aplastic anemia caught the scientist. Years of element in her pockets. Oceans of hazard, warnings, Vigia. 20 feet from the chapel of the shuffling, my son's needle enters bone. An ordinary stabbing. We retrace our way home, find old crayons, flesh-colored stubs, black and tan, peach, almond, sepia, gray. Pigments and saturation. I thought about burning tulips last night. Desiccated, red petals littered the counter, flames fallen from sturdy stems. I wanted to fan every faint ember. Spring unfurls bust and birth, feed the soil with death, and life escapes. Describing greens outside my window to a friend, I tick off forest, jade, hunter, moss. I call out perennial carpets of grape hyacinth, a brown fence gone gray. She talks about chameleons in their turning, the camouflage of prey and predator, of colors merging into background, how dresser crabs wear sponges, seaweed, freeze as blowfish pass. Owls melting into tree bark, a scarlet king snake feigning the fanged coral, survivors in disguise. What lies concealed in woods, on stone, beneath our skin? Disrupt and shield the keen defenses, or slick double cross that cloaks malignance? A rube is green, but not the ruby. The blue side of a wrist spills red, and for that, I have no palette. And I'll close with two poems. Redwood's Diner, and with thanks, the San Pedro River Review included it. Prose poem, Redwood's Diner. Hard to read the age of a stranger who calls everyone honey. She brings biscuits and gravy, frisbee-sized pancakes, coffee, black as 45s. She laughed a snort when asked for a soy latte. Her knee brace is the color of dishwater and droops at the hinge. Her shoulders sag inside a long t-shirt, her brows into parentheses. There's a story behind her eyes. Let's say hissing radiators and rusted swing sets. Stern stepfather who threw her out of the house. The childhood sweetheart lost to a hunting accident. At a back table, she joshes the regulars, delivers pork chops and hash browns. Somebody wants more maple syrup. She limps toward the kitchen, whistles a familiar tune. I want her to hum Hank Williams. I want to wash her apron. And my last poem, and before I read it, thanks again for having us. So it's a lot of fun, and I look forward to the next two readings. Sex poem number 8. This is my dry husk of a sex poem in which I aim to expunge honeypot and yoni, erase climax, rub out thrust, throb a theyhood swelling beneath chestnut trees, green and full. Let me purge rutting, strutting, the wet spot and G-spot, all window dressing for frosted glass. I would yield to sweet spot, the mess of it, confess to the least of it, concede to phrases sparkling, nebulous. What does it mean that I shudder harder when hearing orgasm used as a verb? Or quiver at euphemisms, blotting the point? Rivers of sap coat our tongues, overflow onto flammable hours. My body is a bone-cornered pillow. My last swoon fell like a corpse. The birds and bees were but jays at finch throats, drones sent out from that very honeypot, falling in midair. Across millennia, across the earth, 1 billion billions crawled and crawling yet. Sex spinning stardust in the breath. Thanks.